One, two, three. Hey, everybody. We are now back. It's still Wednesday.
It's
slightly warmer, but cool.
Do you think it's going to get warmer in this room as we go?
No, because
air that we're
maybe. So we're going to talk about the Tennessee campaign.
It's on the sign. We changed our mind about it.
It's called a chalkboard.
3 times? John Bell Hood, Tennessee campaign. John Bell Hood, Tennessee campaign.
Lead us into the Tennessee campaign, Monsignor.
Well, last guy that led people into the Tennessee campaign. Didn't go so great. Anyways, so fall of Atlanta, September 1864. We get into...
Does it burn? Does it fall and then burn?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Especially when someone, not pointing fingers, but when someone accidentally burns his ammunition trains and blows up half the
whoever
city.
it's burning, for the person who fusses about the burning of Atlanta, I wonder if they complain about us dropping an atom bomb on Hiroshima.
I don't know that they have
It never
the same
seems
argument.
to trouble them when 100,000 people were almost vaporized, but poor little Atlanta.
Oh.
Terrible.
Anyways,
war is hell.
Yep.
Tennessee
You cannot
campaign.
find it. So Hood's army moves south of Atlanta.
They went to Florida?
No, that's where Joe Johnston went.
He wanted to go to Andersonville.
But they get down south of Atlanta, down Lovejoy Station. That's where the seeds for the campaign are planted, which really just starts off as kind of an offensive thrust north with no real end game. And then it starts to develop as the possibility of capturing Nashville materializes. And Nashville, I would argue, is the perfect replacement to a city like Atlanta, given that it's got railroads that flow in and through, but it also can serve as this kind of vital link between North and South for Hood's army moving north and Lee's army in Virginia.
You know, I have to say, when I was writing my book, and I've talked about this a bunch through the years, I think the evidence indicates that John Bell Hood never actually believed that Sherman was going to chase him endlessly.
Yeah.
I think that Hood believed he had to give it the old A-team effort, so he runs up the rail line and captures a series of garrisons, like Dalton, where a bunch of USCTs are captured, and you see the awful racial issues, kind of flummox up right there because the Confederates have to almost be held back from attacking the fort, which was surrendering. But ultimately, Sherman wasn't going to play the game, and Hood knew it. I think the facts show us that Nashville was always the end game. And thus, the Tennessee campaign's origins may be up that rail line and into northeast Alabama, but it was always Tennessee. It was always Nashville. It was always maybe pushing into Kentucky, and that, it's that dream. Like this utopia that maybe they could do it. Maybe they could do it. And in October of 1864, why not give it a shot, right?
And in October of 1864, maybe they could do it with 33,000 men under his command, 121 pieces of artillery in tow with the Army of Tennessee. And Nashville's only defended by, 10,000 men?
8,000 men in Nashville, and I think that's a key point because Sherman...
And while it's fortified... It's not well defended. You can have fixed fortifications and cannons. You got to have men to man it.
So Sherman ships George Henry Thomas back to Nashville to begin overseeing the defense. But what Sherman does not do is that he totally underestimates how fast Hood could move. And Hood just goes ripping west across Alabama looking for a cross point over the Tennessee. Of course, he eventually has to go all the way west to Florence. The Florence and Tuscumbia area, which for those of you not familiar with that part of Alabama, it's almost Mississippi. But the point is, Sherman really, he drags his feet. He doesn't send the Fourth Corps on their way for many, many days. And then it's even more time before he gets the 23rd Corps. I've said...
it's the 4th of November before they're even on the move, huh?
It is the 4th of November, and I have told more than one person that on Halloween, on October 31st, 1864, Hood's army, 28,000 infantry and 5,000 cavalry, was sitting astride the Tennessee River, about to strike into Tennessee, and there were only 10,000 troops standing between him and Nashville. That was his plan. The problem is he got delayed at the Tennessee because if you've ever been to that part of the world, it's a friggin' huge river, okay? I mean, it's a mile.
About a mile?
It's
mile
almost a mile across.
Yeah.
And so getting across it, and then it starts to rain. And that's a dry time of year in Tennessee and even throughout much of Alabama and Mississippi, and it just rained and rained and rained and rained and rained.
And he's fighting big logistic problems too.
Right.
Outrunning his supply lines, not having a rail network that can really support him.
So this sounds like we're making excuses, but these are actually well, it's somewhere between a reality.
Well, it is the reality. Those are facts that happen.
Right.
Weather delays armies in the American Civil War,
and I think,
as we'll see at the end of the Tennessee campaign.
I think that's one of his shortcomings, though. Hood tended to outrun the game. He had tried to cross at Decatur, and he has to keep shifting his supply base. But he is so driven to get across the river and get into Tennessee to create maximum chaos. But Sherman's damn lucky that the weather and the logistical situation worked to his favor because David Stanley's in command of the 4th Corps in and around Pulaski. I see no way 10,000 troops holds back 33,000, and I think Stanley does an end run. This is the what if, but that's not what happened. And he got delayed, and the 23rd Corps got into the field. I just think it's always important to tell people that it's easy to look back in hindsight. We know what happened. We know what an epic failure it was. But I don't know what else he was going to do, because chasing Sherman across Georgia and being a nuisance
has no real value.
I think the way you destroy the army is don't use it, and then it just falls apart.
Yeah, and that's the big. And I know you've heard this a million times. Hood's army was dragged into Tennessee.
Oh my gosh!
They wanted to get in here.
Well, they knew by the time they got into Alabama and had turned north.
Yeah.
They were going in a different direction than they had been going for the last 2.5 years. Or, I'm sorry, almost 2 years.
Yeah.
Since Murfreesboro, they'd been moving south. And that does begin to instill some hope and confidence. And all one has to do is read the letters that were written at the time by a multitude of Confederate soldiers. I mean, even everybody's, Southern boy favorite, Sam Watkins, but the letter I always reference, and it was a Mississippian who wrote about being a noble martyr engaged in a holy war. He said, "There's no cause more holy than the cause of our country." That's coursing through the veins of this army too. These are the dedicated ones, just like Hood. These are the hardcore.
All the cowards, all the shirkers, they're gone.
The dead are dead. The wounded are gone. The runaways are gone. This is what's left. That includes Claiborne. That includes Forrest. The names we know.
The Missouri Brigade.
It involves the Missouri Brigade. They've been everywhere from Wilson's Creek up until 64. And on the other side, especially the 4th Corps guys, they've been in this war a long time too.
Oh yeah.
These were old combatants, and so everybody knows what is at stake.
And meanwhile, up in Nashville, George Thomas is doing an incredible job of moving troops and moving supplies to support him in Nashville.
Right.
Got to pull in A.J. Smith's corps. Got to get troops from the garrisons. Got to pull up troops from all of the guardhouses along the way and try and bring them back to Nashville as fast as possible.
So I think a closing thing for the campaign is a point I've tried to make over and over about Hood. November 1st, 1864. Grant has Lee just,
in the arm lock.
in the arm lock, right?
Yep.
Sherman's about to cut loose of Atlanta, what's left of it, and head east. The Trans-Mississippi has already largely fallen apart.
Shenandoah Valley is still kind of smoldering.
Yeah, is smoldering.
Yeah.
Guys like George Hogue, who commanded the 183rd Ohio, had just come out of the Shenandoah Valley. Washington was no longer threatened by Jubal Early. Sheridan and Custer were ripping it apart. Hood and the Army of Tennessee were it.
Yeah.
There was nobody left
Yeah.
on the Confederate side
Yep.
that could do anything.
Yep.
Nothing. They're the only mobile army. They're the only army that can cause problems. And that we cannot forget as we talk about this last great campaign of the American Civil War. All right. Thanks, everybody.